What's up, guys? Today I want to show you some of the plugins and techniques I use in Cubase Pro 9 to go from a weak drum sound like this to a big drum sound like this. Check it out. Alright guys, so here is a track that I've been working on. I recorded a few days ago, and as you can see here, we've got all of my drum tracks right here, and I've listen enabled them so that you can hear what they sound like pre-fader, without any plugins or anything like that on it, just like dry, as if the faders are all set to 0, and you know, it is what it is. Keep in mind, this is digital recording. This is transparent preamps that we're going through here. We're not, you know, this isn't going through some analog console and a bunch of outboard gear and trying to get it just perfect before we even start tracking. We're going to try and get it right after the fact. That's how we do it this way. So here you go. As you can hear, that hi-hat's kind of loud because it's set to 0. Okay, so yeah, so that's not amazing sounding. So let's hear it when it's going through all of my the drum buses, auxes, and you know, reverb and all that stuff. So what I wanted the final product sort of to sound like. So here you go. Anyways, so yeah, that's a lot better. So let me show you just kind of how I do things, and that can kind of give you an idea of how going from, you know, that really sort of unaffected sound to what we have now. So the first thing that we'll start with, we'll just go top down. We'll look at the EQ. So on my kick drum here, just getting rid of some of that muddiness, 200 to, you know, 1,000 hertz. And this can vary. You want to do this by ear, just kind of see where some of that attack is in your kick drum. And, you know, around, I guess, 6K was where I liked it for this kick. And boosting some of the low end around 70 hertz there. Now, with the kick, you can hear on the kick out track, there's a lot of bleed of everything. So what we have is just a high pass filter that will get rid of a lot of that bleed. And so then because really all we want out of it is a lot of bottom end. And hear that with the kick. And then I'm flipping the phase. Sometimes it's hard to tell which you're going to prefer. You just have to play around with it. Sometimes flipping it out 180 degrees sounds better. Sometimes it sounds better when you don't. But it's always worth checking your phase relationships. Then we have the snare EQ, swooping out some of those high mids to get rid of some of the ringiness to it, because it's a pretty ringy snare. and then boosting some of the 200 hertz just to give it a little bit more punch in the low end, and then giving a little bit more highs. Snare bottom, same thing, but we don't need to swoop out the high mids. Our toms, as you can see, doing generally the same thing. I'm accentuating like where the tone is, and then the attack for each of these. We've got a rack, a 12-inch rack tom, 16-inch floor tom, and an 18-inch floor tom. Hi-hat, just getting rid of some of those lows, don't really need them. Some of it's like harshness was around in the 2 kilohertz range. Kind of on the ride, getting rid of the super lows and just kind of accentuating about 3.5 kilohertz right there. Anyways, so for the pre-section here, as you can see, I'm cutting some lows on some of the stuff. I flipped the phase on the bottom snare. I just think it makes the snare punchier. I like to hear some of the bottom end from it. Some people don't like that. I do. Now, the first plugin on the inserts that I am using is Auto Align. And it's made by Sound Radix, runs for about like $200. And the way you use it is you have sort of a master track, and I've chosen my overhead snare track to be sort of that master track that everything is going to align to. But let's talk about alignment for a second. So we've got 2 microphones on the kick. And what alignment does, or what phasing does, is when you're capturing the same source and they're not timed just, it's not just right. As you can see here, this is a little bit off, so here's your compression and rarefaction of the waveform, and they're not lined up perfectly. So now you can go in and manually move it and, line it up or whatever. But then you end up having to line up the rest of the tracks all together. And we want to line up sort of everything together. So AutoLine just kind of does that for you. It detects it for you. So on my overhead snare as my master, I am sending on channel 1. And then all of the other ones are slave to it, receiving on channel 1. And you just set your input threshold and side chain to whatever. If I play it back, so for transient ones, you might want to raise it above where when it's not hitting. And then for like cymbals and stuff like that, maybe just like close to where they're top of their threat, they're peaking. Anyway, so for percussive things, delay and polarity, that's gonna get the phase polarity and the delay compensation just like it, or gonna get it all just kind of lined up together. So that's what Auto Align does. And you detect it by playing back the track, and you hit detect, and as it's playing back, it'll take some time, just let it play, and then it'll set it to a number in samples that it's aligning it. Anyways, so I go through and I do that for all of my drum tracks, and then I have drum leveler I use on my kick and my snare. That's another plugin by Sound Radix, and what it does is it essentially just is a compressor, but it is compressing just like transients. It's just taking those transients and it's making them pop a lot more. This is really great for anybody who doesn't want to do triggering other drum sounds. They just have really weak snare hits or something like that, or really inconsistent snare hits. This is really great for that. So yeah, we could go through all the features and stuff like that, but this is a really great plugin for that. This is something that I use, and you can hear the difference with it off. hear the drums without it on the snare at least. So I'm using it on the snare to get rid of some ring as well as make it pop a little bit more. So let's hear that. So you can hear a lot more. You can hear a lot of ring on that snare. So let's hear it with it on. As you can see here, I'm gating. So some of the other, the hi-hat especially, is being kind of reduced in the bleed in that microphone now. So then the next thing that I have, which is on the snare, top snare mic, is I use the Vintage Oral Exciter by Waves, and I just am essentially using this to bring out some more presence. So let's hear the snare without it. And then with it. So I mean, it makes a huge difference. Brings a lot of more brightness and presence to the snare track. The last thing I use is Audio Assault's Transient. This is a free plugin. It's actually really, really good. In the vein of Transient Designer, like SPL or whatever. I have not bought UAD's version of it yet, which I really want to do, but you know, money. So all I'm really doing with this is kind of compensating for some of the ring that I'm removing with the drum leveler. So I'm adding a little bit of sustain and a little bit more attack to it, because you can never have enough attack with the snare. Well, I guess you can, but it sounds really good to me. Anyway, so without it, you just pay attention, I guess, to the ring on the snare. It's not as ringy, but I wanted to add a little bit more. And with it on, yeah. With it off. With it on. So all I'm really doing is just the drum leveler is making it so that the snare is just kind of coming and going real quick, and this is just kind of bringing back a little bit of that sustain. So I'm using the drum leveler to get rid of like just a massive amount of ring that's going on with the snare drum once we run it through compression, you know, through the parallel compression on the drum bus and stuff like that, and just really try and bring out the snare without boosting all that ring. That's what we're using drum leveler for. And with this, I'm just trying to bring some of that back because I still want a little bit of it. Okay, so then I guess the last thing is on my toms tracks. We've got a 12-inch tom, a 16-inch floor tom, and an 18-inch floor tom. And essentially all I'm really doing with it is I've just got a gate on it. And that's just so we're not letting it, so when it opens up once the tom hits, but then it closes and we can't hear any of the cymbal bleed or other stuff. That's all I really want with that. And all the panning is just kind of how I'm sort of visually from the drummer's perspective would see it, you know, in percent, you know, a percentage from left to right. But that's really just, you know, up to you how you want to pan things. So play around with it. Okay, so let's take a look at our drum buses, or drum groups, as they're called in Cubase, and our effects tracks, which are basically just parallel. All of these are parallel effects tracks, or you know. They're running alongside the main drum bus. So all the drums are being bused to this group right here, except for the toms. I've got them going to a tom track, which is being then bussed out to this. It's just so I can process the toms together without having to use these plugins on each tom track, because I want to use it on all of them. I just don't need to use more instances of it. Anyway, so and as you can see, here's the EQ I'm using for that. So on the drum bus, I just have a tiny bit of compression that I do. And then I use the PSP Vintage Warmer semi-driven tape preset with the fat channel on. I don't know how many people still use this plugin. I haven't heard of a lot of other people using it, but I absolutely love it. I think it gives it a really great sound. I think it's a great plugin. I use that on my drum bus and on my cymbal bus, which is essentially just my overheads. Then on my parallel drum bus, the parallel compression, I've got my EL7 Fatso UAD plugin, and it's just a really monster compressor that just really is just squashing it right now and just makes it sound really good. I'm using preset In Your Face drums, and I just think it sounded really good for this track. Then I'm using parallel tape saturation. Some people might just throw it on their entire drums. I'm just kind of like blending it. I don't want to use it entirely. I think that is what most people would do, but I kind of like it like this. So then on the toms, kind of the same thing as a snare, using drum leveler, transient, and using the exciter. Then, aside from the PSP Vintage Warmer on the cymbals, I've got the S1 Imager to make my overheads a little bit wider. And then I'm using Parallel Compression 1176 UAD plugin, which I think is just absolutely fantastic on overheads. First time I ever actually used a real 1176, it couldn't pull me away from it. I used it on tons of stuff. It's just such a great plugin. Rolling off, some of the highs on the room mics and on the cymbals. They were a little harsh after everything, so that's what I'm doing there. And the same compression that I'm doing, initial compression that I'm doing on the drum bus, I'm doing on the room bus as well. And then using more of a parallel transient designer. But this one is called Transient Master. Native Instruments came with Native Instruments 10. And it's very similar to Audio Assault's transient. I mean, they do the same thing, but they have just a little bit of a different sound. I feel like the Transient Master is better at sustain, whereas the Audio Assault transient is better at attack. But they're both really good. It's just different flavors, and one is free, so I recommend checking this one out, Transient by Audio Assault. And then last of all of these drum groups and effects are going out to a master drum bus, which I haven't put anything on. I think if I were to put anything on, it might be some saturation or something like that, but I haven't done that yet. I'm still kind of playing around with it. But then I'm sending that out to effect send to my reverb here. And that is the UAD Lexicon 224. This is just a fantastic reverb unit. It's an emulation of an old Lexicon reverb unit that studios were using all throughout the 80s and 90s or whatever. And it's just a really great sounding Really, 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 really great sounding reverb for just about anything, drums especially. So anyways, other than that, on my master bus, I've got a stereo enhancer. I think that's probably adding a little bit of width. That's adding a lot of width to the overall drum sound as well. But other than that, that's pretty much it. That's how I'm getting my drum sound. Let's take one more listen. So let's take a listen. We went from this to this. Not too bad. All right, guys. Well, that's it. Thanks for watching. If you liked it, please subscribe below. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Thanks for watching.